Hey Reddit. This is gonna be a long one, and honestly, I still can't believe it all happened the way it did. I've read stories on here before and thought, damn, I feel for that guy, never expecting I'd be the one posting my own version of a living nightmare. But here I am, hoping that sharing this might help someone else avoid what I went through, or at least get some catharsis like I did. So a little context: I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Rachel, 32F, for almost 6 years. We met through mutual friends at a summer barbecue, hit it off immediately. She was charming, quick-witted, beautiful in that "I know I'm hot and I dare you to say otherwise" kind of way. I thought she was just confident, now I'd call it manipulative, but I'll get to that. Our relationship started strong. We moved fast, maybe too fast, but I was in love. She made me feel like the luckiest guy alive. We had fun, we traveled, we laughed a lot. But looking back now, I think I confused adrenaline with love. Rachel always had this way of turning every conversation into something about her, and I chalked it up to her being a strong personality. Yeah. That was me being an idiot. About 9 months ago, I started noticing something was off. Nothing big at first, just little things. She started taking her phone everywhere with her, even to the bathroom. Started locking it. Started wearing lingerie to go out with the girls, which was weird because she never did that when we had date night. Started acting bored when I talked about my day, snapping at me for small stuff. And the sex? Non-existent unless she wanted something. I asked if something was wrong. She said I was being paranoid. Claimed work was stressing her out. She even cried once when I brought up how distant she'd been. Said I was being emotionally neglectful. Made me feel like the bad guy. Classic deflection, right? But the gut feeling didn't go away. I started watching her more closely. And what I found made me feel like I got sucker-punched by a freight train. Alright, so let's pick up where I left off. My gut was screaming at me that something was wrong, and for once, I decided not to gaslight myself into believing I was overreacting. The first real clue came on a random Wednesday night. Rachel had told me she was going to a girls' wine night with her usual crew, Jen, Alyssa, and that new girl from her office, Chelsea. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it. But she left the house in this low-cut black dress and heels I hadn't seen in 2 years. Perfume I didn't recognize. Lipstick way darker than usual. I made a joke about it, trying to impress someone. She rolled her eyes and said, "God, can't a woman look good for herself?" Then she stormed out. I should have let it go. But about 30 minutes after she left, I remembered she'd left her iPad in the bathroom earlier. Now, I'm not proud of this part, but I was desperate, and I knew it synced with her iMessages. I figured if I was wrong, I'd apologize. But if I was right, well, I needed to know. I opened the iPad, half expecting to find nothing. But right there, in the Messages app, was a conversation with someone saved as D. That's it. Just D. And the messages? Let's just say I'll never forget what I read. Can't wait to feel you again. You were incredible last time. I'm still so smiling face with horns. He's so clueless, it's almost sad lol. That last one was the dagger. I just sat there, holding the tablet, heart pounding, hands shaking. I felt this weird mix of rage and disbelief. Like, this couldn't be real. Maybe I was misreading it. Maybe it was just a joke. But no. It kept going. Sexts. Plans to meet up. Talk of past hookups. And then something else that chilled me to the core. Don't worry. I'm clean. Just remember what I told you, only condoms until I get the all clear next week. The all clear? Clean? What the hell did that mean? I didn't sleep that night. I put the iPad back exactly where I found it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. I needed proof. And if she was lying to me about this, I had no doubt she'd lie again. So I started planning. So yeah, after reading those messages, I couldn't just let it slide. I decided right then and there that I wasn't going to confront Rachel until I had her cornered. Not just, "I read your texts," kind of proof, but something she couldn't wiggle her way out of with tears or twisted logic. I wanted her exposed. If that makes me petty, so be it. I was done playing the fool. The first thing I did was take screenshots of every single message between her and D. I airdropped them to my own phone and backed them up to my laptop and a flash drive I kept hidden in the garage. I wasn't about to let her gaslight me into thinking I imagined all this. Then I started digging deeper. I checked our cell phone records, not the actual messages, but the call and text logs. Sure enough, there were dozens of calls and texts to one specific number that wasn't saved in her contacts. Times matched up with when she said she was at yoga or getting drinks. I reverse searched the number. It belonged to someone named Derek C., and the area code matched where she worked. I couldn't believe it. Derek. That name actually rang a bell. She'd mentioned a Derek once, some guy in her office who hit on everyone but was so gross. I remember laughing at the time, like, poor guy never stood a chance with you. Yeah. Turns out he had more than a chance. I also checked her location history on Google. Most days it showed she was at work and then home. But 2 Wednesdays in the past month, she'd been at the same hotel 20 minutes from her office. Both times for over 3 hours. I felt like I was watching my entire marriage unravel in real time. At this point, I knew I had her. But I still wasn't ready to go nuclear. I wanted her to admit it. I wanted it in her words. And more than anything, I wanted the truth about what she meant by clean and the all clear. So I set a trap. I told her my buddy Mark from college had invited me on a last-minute weekend camping trip, just the guys, no wives. I acted excited and rushed about it. She played it cool, said it sounded fun. Too easy. I left Friday morning, tossed a duffel bag in my trunk, and drove around the corner to my coworker Dave's house. He owed me a favor, and he let me hang out there all weekend while I watched her location bounce from home to that same hotel again, then back. But here's where it gets even darker. I'd planted a voice-activated recorder under the passenger seat of her car earlier that week. I checked the audio Sunday night. Guess who was in the car moaning like a porn star? Guess who wasn't wearing a condom? Yeah. I had all the proof I needed. But I wasn't ready to confront her just yet. Nope. I was going to make her confess. Publicly. After the hotel visit and that graphic audio recording, I had no doubt left, Rachel was full-on cheating. And not just a one-time thing either. She was in deep with this Derek guy. But instead of confronting her, I put on my best, oblivious husband act. I came back Sunday night from my fake camping trip, smelling like campfire. Shout out to Dave for that detail, and Rachel was waiting on the couch in leggings and a messy bun, pretending like she'd spent the weekend watching Netflix and missing me. I almost laughed. She even cooked lasagna, which she never does unless she's trying to butter me up for something. I asked how her weekend was. She said it was boring and asked about the trip. Oh, it was chill, I said. Beer, fishing, dumb stories from college. Nothing exciting. She smiled. Sounds fun. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I smiled back, kissed her on the forehead, and said, "I'm glad to be home." Inside, I was boiling. Over the next week, I started documenting everything. I copied bank transactions. Noticed charges for gas stations near that hotel. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to. One of them was the same spot we went to for our anniversary the year before. That one stung. I even found a Venmo payment she sent to someone labeled D Snake, with the caption, "Thanks for the escape winking face." So I started planning phase 2 of my trap, get her to admit it on her own. I made up a story that my friend's wife had gotten cheated on and their husband found out because of the cheater's location data. I told this to Rachel over dinner one night to gauge her reaction. She froze for a second. Then said, "That's crazy. People who do that stuff are sick." Like, just leave the relationship if you're unhappy. I watched her as she picked at her salad. She couldn't even look me in the eye. I almost admired the audacity. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. 2 days later, I came home early from work. Rachel was in the shower. Her phone was on the bed, unlocked. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened her health app. Guess what was sitting right there under lab results? A positive test result for genital herpes, dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. No mention of it. No talk. No conversation. No heads up to the guy she was sleeping next to every night. Nothing. That was the moment something inside me snapped. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was dangerous. She could have infected me without a second thought. And that's when I decided, this ends with everyone knowing what she did. And it was going to be her words, her face, her confession. She just didn't know it yet. So yeah, Rachel had herpes and didn't say a damn thing to me. Let that sink in. She was still sleeping next to me, still trying to fake normal, all while she knew she could have passed on something permanent. At that point, it was no longer just about catching her cheating. This was about exposing what kind of person she really was. I was done playing detective. It was time to go full chess master. I started crafting my plan carefully. I didn't want a shouting match. I didn't want her crying and trying to spin the story behind closed doors. I wanted everyone, her friends, her co-workers, even her precious Derek, to know who she really was, from her own mouth. And since she was always glued to her phone and social media, I knew exactly how to make it happen. The bait? A fake email from a clinic. I created a burner email and mocked up a phony message that looked like it was from a women's health center. Subject line: Important, STI exposure notification, immediate attention required. The message said that someone Rachel had been sexually active with in the past 30 days had tested positive for herpes and she needed to call a confidential hotline immediately for next steps. It looked legit, logo, contact info, all of it. I sent it to her real email while I was at work. Within 30 minutes, she texted me. Hey, did you get anything weird from a clinic or doctor's office? I think someone is messing with me. I played dumb. What? No. Why, what happened? She didn't reply right away. But later that night, she was jumpy. Anxious. Scrolling her phone like a fiend. I knew she was spiraling. I'd planted the seed, and it was growing. The next part was trickier. I needed her to talk about it. On record. So I set up a fake Zoom, telehealth, call using a friend of mine who's a voice actor. He pretended to be a nurse practitioner from the clinic, called her back, and, get this, recorded the entire thing. We live in a one-party consent state, don't worry. She confirmed everything on that call. That she had slept with multiple partners recently. That one of them gave her herpes. That she hadn't told her husband yet because he's really emotional. And that she was planning to have the conversation eventually. Eventually. That call was gold. Literal confession. I had her in 1080p, quality audio admitting to infidelity, hiding an STI, and lying about it for weeks. But I wasn't done. I still had one more move to make, one that would guarantee she couldn't deny it or spin it. And it would all go down in front of her friends and family. So this is where it all starts coming together. Rachel's birthday was coming up. Normally, she threw herself a big, queen for a day, kind of thing, wine, decorations, those stupid balloons shaped like numbers, the whole look at me Instagram spread. But this year, she told me she wanted something small and classy. Just a dinner at her favorite rooftop bar with close friends and family. That sounded perfect, better than I could have planned myself. Because I was going to turn her little soiree into the stage for the grand reveal. Now, before you think I'm some sadistic psycho, let me just say this: I thought long and hard about whether this was too far. But after the lies, the cheating, the herpes, and the constant gaslighting, I figured this was justice. And maybe a little theater, too. She loved attention. She was about to get more than she could handle. I played the role of loving husband like a damn Oscar winner. I helped her plan the guest list, reserved the spot under her name, even paid the deposit out of our joint account, because petty has levels, my friend. 20 people RSVP'd, her 2 sisters, her best friends, some co-workers, her parents, and even a couple of my friends she insisted on inviting to keep up appearances. Now here's where it gets interesting. I made a slideshow. That's right. A digital presentation. We were already planning to use the venue's projector for a fun memory montage of Rachel growing up. I offered to make it myself. She was thrilled. "Oh, babe, that's actually sweet." "Yeah. Real sweet." The first 2 minutes of the slideshow were normal. Baby pics. Teen angst. Us on our honeymoon. Laughs all around. Drinks flowing. Rachel was eating it up. And then, slide number 33. Black screen. White text. What you're about to see may surprise you. Then, screenshots of the messages between her and Derek. Photos of her location history at the hotel. Snippets from their voice recording in her car. And finally, clips from the fake telehealth Zoom call, including the line, "I haven't told my husband yet because he's really emotional." The room went dead silent. Rachel's face turned ghost white. Then bright red. Then this weird twitchy panic look like she was trying to calculate a lie but couldn't find the words. She stood up and yelled, "What the F*** is this?" And me? I just sipped my drink, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "A confession. Happy birthday, babe." So, there we are, Rachel standing in the middle of her own birthday party, blinking like she just got slapped by karma herself, and 20 people sitting there in absolute shock. You could have heard a pin drop, right up until she exploded. She started with the classic defense, denial. "This is fake. He edited all of this. This is abuse." Yep. That was her go-to move. Try to flip the script, make me look like some psychotic tech wizard who spent weeks deepfaking a voice call and text messages just to ruin her big day. But no one was buying it. Her sisters looked like they'd seen a ghost. Her mom was crying. And one of her friends, the one who always seemed a little too honest, just muttered, "Jesus, Rachel, I let her rant." I didn't say a word. Just stood there with my arms crossed while she dug her own grave, flinging out lie after lie. Finally, someone asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Rachel, do you really have herpes?" And you know what she did? She broke. She sat back down, put her face in her hands, and said, "I was going to tell him." Boom. That was it. The nail in the coffin. People started grabbing their things. A few awkward hugs were exchanged, but most people just left. Quietly. Like they were fleeing a crime scene. Derek wasn't there, by the way. She hadn't invited him. I'm guessing she didn't want the 2 men she was juggling to end up in the same room. Smart move, but too little, too late. Once the crowd cleared out, Rachel came at me full force, shoving, crying, screaming that I humiliated her and that she could never come back from this. I just stared at her. I'd spent months drowning in humiliation and betrayal. One evening of hers. Not even close to repayment. I said, "You could have come clean. You could have told me the truth. You didn't even care if I got infected." She didn't respond. She just slumped down on the floor, shaking and sobbing. I left her there. Drove home alone. She didn't come back that night. And when she did, the locks had already been changed. Changing the locks was more symbolic than anything. I knew legally she still had rights to the place, but I didn't care. That night, I needed space. I needed silence. I needed to sit in my kitchen and finally breathe without pretending everything was fine. She showed up the next morning around 7 a.m., pounding on the door like the building was on fire. I didn't answer. She called my phone 6 times, then left a string of voicemails ranging from weepy apologies to furious threats. "You had no right to do that to me, we can fix this, please, you just ruined my life, you in coward." Yeah, I ruined her life. Amazing. When I finally did open the door, hours later, she looked like hell. No makeup, hair in a tangled bun, puffy eyes. She tried to push past me, but I blocked the doorway. "I'm not letting you in until we talk," I said calmly. "What the hell do you think we're doing now?" "You talking," I said. "Me listening. That's not a conversation. So either you answer some questions, or you leave." She actually laughed. A short, bitter little sound. "What do you want to know? You clearly think you know everything already. Let's start with this, how long has it been going on?" She paused. Then shrugged. 5, 6 months. Maybe longer. My stomach turned. "And Derek, he knows you're married." "Of course," she snapped. "He didn't care." Disgusting. "And the herpes?" She looked away. "I didn't know I had it at first. I thought it was irritation. I got tested a couple weeks ago to be safe. And you just decided to wait and see before mentioning it to me." I didn't want to start a fight until I had the follow-up results. That was her logic. She could potentially infect her husband with a lifelong STD, but hey, as long as we didn't argue about it yet, it was fine. I stared at her, silent. Then I said, "You need to pack your stuff. I'll be filing for divorce. We're done." She froze. "You're serious?" I nodded. "Dead serious." And then came the waterworks. She collapsed on the floor, sobbing and begging. Said it was a mistake. Said she was confused. Said Derek meant nothing and that I was her real home. I didn't flinch. I'd been burned too deep for sympathy. "You treated me like a placeholder," I said. "Now you get to be alone." She left that night with 2 garbage bags full of clothes. And that was the last time she ever stepped foot in our home. After Rachel left, it was like living in the aftermath of a tornado, quiet, but everything felt wrong. Her perfume still lingered on the throw pillows. Her coffee mug was still by the sink. Her stupid decorative signs, "Live, Laugh, Love," seriously, were still hanging on the wall like trophies of delusion. I went room to room, clearing it all out. Anything that had her touch got tossed or boxed. The worst part. The people caught in the middle. Her mom texted me 2 days after the party. She apologized, not for Rachel, but for everything. Said she was ashamed, and that I didn't deserve any of this. I actually felt kind of bad for her. She was sweet. Always had been. You could tell she raised her daughter to be better, Rachel just chose not to be. Then her sister, Claire, reached out. She was furious, at Rachel, not me. Apparently Rachel had lied to her too, even told her I was abusive and paranoid, which is why she hadn't told me about the STI. Claire said she was done with her. I didn't ask for that, but it still hit me hard. One person's choices can set fire to a whole web of relationships. Even my own parents got involved. They'd always liked Rachel. My mom used to call her the daughter I never had. That phone call was rough. I explained everything, sparing most of the STI details but making it clear the marriage was over. My mom cried. My dad asked if I wanted to come stay with them for a bit, just to get my head straight. I declined, but I appreciated it. Then came the blow I didn't expect, my job. I guess someone, wonder who, had sent a tip to HR that I had used company time and resources to create a revenge campaign against my spouse. Probably Rachel, trying to swing back after her public meltdown. I got pulled into a meeting. Thankfully, I'd done everything from home or on personal devices, and my manager believed me. But it shook me. She really would have burned my livelihood to the ground just to save face. Derek? Well, he went dark. Deleted social media. Word around her office was that he'd been let go, which I'm guessing had to do with a messy little company policy about not sleeping with married co-workers during business hours at the Holiday Inn Express. Whoops. Rachel texted me a week later. I miss you. I made a mistake. I didn't respond. She tried again. Can we talk? Just once. Nope. She finally gave up after I blocked her number and emailed her lawyer's contact info. I was done letting her take up space in my life, or my head. But I wasn't okay yet. Far from it. The silence after cutting Rachel off was almost worse than the chaos. At least when everything was falling apart, I had adrenaline and anger to carry me through. But after all that, came the void. Waking up alone. No one next to me. No one to say good morning to. No passive-aggressive comments about how I folded the towels wrong. Just silence. And man, that silence was loud. I'd thought that once I kicked her out and exposed the truth, I'd feel powerful. Free, even. Instead, I felt hollow. Not because I wanted her back, hell no, but because the life I thought I had was a damn illusion. Every memory suddenly felt tainted. Every I love you replayed in my head like a cruel joke. I started drinking more than usual. Not blackout drunk, but just enough to stay numb. Whiskey became my nightly ritual. I'd scroll through old photos like an idiot, our wedding, the vacations, the time we bought that stupid second-hand canoe because she wanted to be outdoorsy. None of it felt real anymore. Just screenshots from a life someone else lived. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, what if I hadn't checked the GPS? What if I had just accepted her lies like so many people do? Would I be walking around infected right now, thinking my marriage was fine? There's something soul-crushing about realizing the person who promised to protect you might have actively endangered you. I stopped going out. Friends invited me places. I ignored them. Texts piled up. I didn't have the energy to explain everything, and I sure as hell didn't want their pity. One night, I broke down. Like full-on ugly cried into the kitchen counter. Rage, grief, betrayal, it all hit at once like a damn freight train. And I just kept saying to myself, why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? And then I realized the most painful truth of all. It wasn't about me. It never was. Rachel cheated because Rachel chose to. Lied because it was easier. Hid an STD because she didn't care. That wasn't my failure. That was hers. That night was my rock bottom. And the next morning, I woke up and decided I wasn't going to let her be the final chapter in my story. It's strange, isn't it? You can spend years of your life in a relationship, thinking everything is going according to plan, and in a single moment, everything can come crashing down. But what I learned over the next few months was this: I didn't have to let her destruction be my ending. I took a step back, started doing things for me, just me. The first change was small but significant. I started working out again. It wasn't to get revenge body or any of that nonsense. I needed to feel in control of something. Lifting weights at the gym was a way to redirect that constant knot of anger and sadness in my chest into something physical. Slowly, I started sleeping better. I stopped drinking so much, too. It's easy to sink into a bottle when you're hurting, but I realized I was just using it to avoid facing the pain. So I cut back, then eventually quit for a bit. I started reading again, books that had nothing to do with betrayal or relationships, but stuff that made me feel like me again. I threw myself into my work, nothing distracting, nothing complex, just doing what I was good at. My colleagues noticed the change. My manager even complimented me on my focus. I got a promotion 6 months after Rachel left. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was building something again, piece by piece. And then came therapy. I wasn't sure about it at first. I thought it was just for people who couldn't pull themselves together. But I had to admit, I was a mess. I needed to talk. And damn, did it help. I wasn't just talking about Rachel or the affair, I was unpacking all the old baggage, stuff I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for years. One of the biggest things I learned in therapy was how much I'd lost myself in trying to save the relationship. I'd ignored my own needs, my own desires, all to make sure she was happy. I spent so much time worrying about her happiness that I lost sight of my own. That wasn't a mistake I was going to make again. I also started reaching out to friends, people I'd distanced myself from when I was caught up in the toxic cycle of Rachel's drama. They were there for me, and I was embarrassed I hadn't leaned on them sooner. I wasn't alone, even when I thought I was. It was in those months of rebuilding that I realized what I had to do next. I needed to officially close the door on Rachel, not just legally, but emotionally. I'd made my peace with everything. No more wondering, what if? No more hoping she'd come back with some miracle explanation that made everything make sense. Rachel was part of my past now, and I was ready to move forward. About 9 months after Rachel left, I thought I was finally in a place where I could just move on. I had my life together, work, health, friendships, everything was slowly coming together. No more baggage. No more wondering what went wrong. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up. I was at home one Saturday morning, having coffee on the couch when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it, and there she was. Rachel. Standing there, looking different, calmer, almost contrite. She was still wearing the same old clothes from our marriage, but her face looked worn. She'd clearly been through something, but it wasn't like before. She wasn't throwing accusations. She wasn't manipulating me. She was just there. I know you probably don't want to see me, she started, her voice small, but I need to talk. My gut reaction was to slam the door and call it a day. But for some reason, I didn't. I just stood there, arms crossed, feeling every muscle tense. Talk about what? She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I've been doing a lot of thinking. And a lot of therapy. She looked at me, like she was trying to gauge my reaction. I owe you an apology, for everything. I couldn't help it, I scoffed. An apology? After everything? She nodded. I was wrong. I was selfish and hurtful, and I've been living with the guilt of what I did. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. I took a deep breath. You don't get to just show up after months of silence and expect to make it right with an apology. You ruined everything. You lied to me. You gave me an STD, for God's sake. And then you had the nerve to act like none of it was your fault. She flinched at that, but she didn't back down. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I needed to come here and be honest. About everything. That stopped me. She wasn't trying to make excuses. She wasn't blaming me. She wasn't demanding anything. It was just a raw, uncomfortable honesty. I didn't let her in. But I didn't close the door in her face, either. I stood there for a while, letting the tension sit between us. Finally, I said, why now? Why after all this time? I've been through a lot, she said, her voice quieter now. I lost my job. My friends turned their backs on me. My family's disappointed in me. I had to learn how to live with the consequences. And I know I deserve it. But I miss the person I used to be. The person I was when we were together. I didn't respond right away. I was processing everything. A part of me wanted to hear her out, wanted to believe she was sincere. But another part of me just wanted to slam the door again and never look back. But I had to admit, she was honest. She wasn't begging. She wasn't making excuses. It wasn't enough to change what had happened, but I couldn't completely shut her out, either. I think you've got a lot to figure out on your own, I said, my voice steady. But I appreciate you coming here. I don't know what you expect from me, but this is the closest thing to an apology I've gotten from you. And that's all it'll be. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but she didn't try to force me into anything more. She just gave me one last look and said, I hope you find happiness, even if it's without me." And with that, she turned and left. I stood there for a long time after she left, just staring at the door. It wasn't the grand closure I thought I'd need. It wasn't a happy ending. It was just done. But I could breathe easier now. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I just felt empty. In a good way. Rachel was finally out of my life. For good. I wasn't expecting the visit from Rachel to have any lasting effect on me, but it did. The weird thing is, I didn't feel like I had to keep rehashing the past anymore. I'd spent so much time stewing over everything, what went wrong, how she'd betrayed me, how I let it happen, that I was finally ready to move on. And not just from her, but from everything that had held me back. I took a step back from the hurt, the anger, the resentment, and just breathed. I realized that in the months after Rachel left, I'd focused so much on the loss and the betrayal that I'd missed the chance to heal. But that visit, those honest words, finally gave me the closure I needed, even though I hadn't expected it to. And that's when I started making peace with myself. I wasn't perfect, but I had survived something painful, and I wasn't going to let it define the rest of my life. It wasn't easy, though. The first few weeks after Rachel's visit were a rollercoaster. I had moments where I'd wake up, suddenly hit with the realization of what had happened. The memories would flood back. But then, I'd remind myself, I didn't deserve any of that. I wasn't the one who broke my vows. I wasn't the one who betrayed trust. She was. I kept going to therapy, and slowly, I started feeling like myself again. I was figuring out who I was outside of the relationship. I rediscovered hobbies I'd put aside, painting, hiking, reading. Little things that made me feel connected to who I had been before Rachel. I even started dating again, tentatively. Nothing serious, just casual connections, meeting people, getting to know them. But no one ever felt like a replacement for Rachel. I wasn't looking for that anymore. I was looking for something real, not a band-aid for the hole she'd left in my heart. That shift in mindset made all the difference. Over time, I grew more comfortable with being alone. The loneliness I'd initially felt became less about emptiness and more about freedom. I didn't need someone else to fill the void anymore, I was enough on my own. And that was empowering. Months passed, and eventually, Rachel faded into the background. I'd check in with her family once in a while, just to make sure they were doing okay, but I didn't think about her every day anymore. I didn't miss her. Then, one day, I got a message from Claire, Rachel's sister. It was a simple message, I just wanted to check in. I know you've been through a lot, and I want you to know I'm sorry for what happened. I know Rachel's not the person you thought she was. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. That hit me differently than Rachel's apology. It wasn't for me. It wasn't an attempt to fix anything or ask for forgiveness, it was just human connection. It was someone acknowledging the pain, acknowledging the damage, without asking for anything in return. I thought about it for a while, then decided to reach out. I met Claire for coffee a few weeks later. It wasn't about rehashing old wounds or trying to understand Rachel's mistakes, it was just about being two people, both affected by the same situation, trying to find peace. And we did. We talked about the fallout, about how everything went so horribly wrong. But we didn't stay in the past. We both agreed, sometimes things just don't work out. People screw up, they learn, they move on. But the important thing was, we were still moving. Rachel had taken so much from me, but in the end, she couldn't take my future. She couldn't take my peace. And that was a victory I wasn't going to give her. A year had passed since Rachel left, and I finally felt like I was in a place where I could reflect on everything without the sting of pain, the anger, or the confusion. I wasn't healed yet, but I was healing. And that was enough. I had a solid routine now, work, hobbies, a new gym regimen that helped clear my head, and even a couple of new friends. Life was manageable again. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Then came the phone call. It was late one evening, and I was wrapping up work when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but I answered anyway. The voice on the other end was unmistakable, though. "Hey, it's me." I froze. It was Rachel. I almost hung up. I should have. But curiosity won out. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to sound neutral. There was no need to be angry. No need to waste energy on that. I don't know where to start," she said, her voice shaky. "I'm not asking for anything. I just need to tell you something. Something important." I closed my eyes, taking a breath. My first instinct was to be defensive. But then I remembered something my therapist had told me: you don't have to react to everything. You get to choose how to handle things now. So, I stayed quiet and listened. "I've been to therapy," she said. "For real this time. I've been working on myself. I know I hurt you. And I've been living with that for a long time. But I need to tell you the truth about what happened." There was a long pause, and my heart started to race. My brain was running through a million thoughts at once. What now? What truth? I wasn't just with Derek, okay? It wasn't just a fling. I was in a really bad place. I got involved with someone else, too. It was a mess. And I'm sorry. My throat tightened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She'd been with someone else too. The betrayal felt like it was piling on, heavier than before. But I didn't react. I just listened. "And I got tested," she continued. "The herpes, it wasn't just Derek. I don't know who I got it from, but I know I gave it to you. And I should have told you. I should have told you right away." There it was. The truth about the STD I'd been stuck with. But I didn't feel anger. Not anymore. I just felt tired. Like the weight of it all had settled into my bones. "I didn't want to ruin your life," she whispered. "But I did. I messed up everything. And I'm sorry." I sat back in my chair, rubbing my eyes. A part of me wanted to yell, to throw it all in her face. But the other part of me, the part that had learned to heal, just let it go. "Rachel," I said, my voice calm but firm, "I'm not angry anymore. I was. For a long time. But I'm not anymore. You don't get to keep taking up space in my life." She was silent for a long time, and I could hear her breathing on the other end. I almost felt bad for her, but I didn't let myself linger on it. "You need to stop thinking you owe me anything," I said, finally. "I've moved on. I've accepted what happened, and I'm not going to keep revisiting this. You've hurt me. But I'm stronger now. And that's where it ends. For both of us." And just like that, the chapter was closed. I didn't need an apology to move forward anymore. I didn't need closure to let go. I had already given that to myself. "I hope you find peace, Rachel," I said, and hung up. That was it. The final piece of the puzzle, put in place. And now, finally, I was free. It's funny how the end of something can feel like the beginning of something else, isn't it? For so long, I'd been living in the aftermath of Rachel's betrayal, trying to pick up the pieces of my broken heart, my shattered trust. But after that final conversation, after everything I'd gone through, I realized something: I was no longer a victim of my circumstances. I wasn't defined by Rachel or what she did to me. I wasn't even defined by the pain I had experienced. I was defined by how I chose to move forward. And I chose peace. I decided to leave the city. It wasn't a hasty decision, but I needed a fresh start, somewhere that didn't hold the memories of Rachel or the shadows of everything that had fallen apart. So, I sold the house, moved to a smaller place a few hours away, and started over. The people here don't know my story, and I don't need to tell it. I'm building a new life on my terms, not because of what she did to me, but because of who I've become because of it. I've been dating again, but this time, I'm doing it with eyes wide open. I'm not rushing. I'm not looking to fill the hole left by Rachel. I'm meeting people for who they are, not comparing them to ghosts of my past. And if something works, it works. If not, I walk away with no regrets. I'm also focusing more on the people who stuck by me, the friends, the family, the ones who didn't bail when things got rough. They were my anchor when I thought I was drowning. And I'll never take them for granted again. In a weird way, Rachel's betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me. It taught me what I didn't want in life, who I didn't want to be, and how important it is to set boundaries, to know my worth and stand firm in it. It taught me to trust my instincts, not to second-guess myself, and that no matter what anyone else does to me, I'm the one who gets to decide how I move forward. Looking back now, I can see the lessons in all the pain. The heartbreak, the anger, the tears, all of it led me to this place, where I'm whole again. Where I can look in the mirror and feel proud of who I am, not ashamed of what happened to me. To anyone going through something similar, here's what I'd say: you are stronger than you think. You'll hurt, you'll question everything, but in the end, you'll come out the other side. It won't be easy, but it'll be worth it. Don't let the actions of someone else define your life. You get to write your own story. And me? I'm writing a new one. A story that's mine, with chapters full of peace, strength, and a future that's wide open.